suggestion that we have a meeting scheduled for December 10th of this year. And typically, it's a strategic plan for the commission. And we have a strategic plan, obviously, in front of us. So my suggestion is, on top of some other items that will be discussed, I think we need to have the commission to go through this document and give us their priorities in terms of the items that they want to work on it immediately. My goal was, when we started on this strategic plan, is to tie it into the budget. But with everything happened and with the challenges in the budget, that could not happen. I'm going to have Michelle go through the items, and then if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Again, as Khalid said, we'll try to get through this. I know we don't have very much time tonight, and there's a lot to talk about. Again, on your screen, if you want to kind of direct your focus there, and then in front of you is a hard copy, so you can take some notes by each action item when we get to it. That'd be, I think, helpful for us, because I know it is a small texted document that you got in your packet. That's how these things pan out sometimes. So very quickly, where the content of our plan came from was that report that was produced by GAI Consultants. Back in December, they were our consultant that led us through this process, between the one-on-one meetings with the commission, meetings with staff, and then public meetings, 2 public meetings back to back. Their report on page 7 through 11, under each category, we have communication and trust, quality of life, growth management, environmental resiliency, and transportation. If you look through that report, that is where the starter ideas came from, and suggestions to staff on what we should move forward with based on all the information that we got from those sessions. So given that version of the information, we took it and put it in the framework. I know it's not appearing well on the screen right now. There's a graphics issue here with the reader, but we broke it down into this framework, and then again, once we added the action to each item and the financial impact, it really made the document almost illegible. So for the sake of being clear tonight, I put each item on the screen, so we'll go through each of them. There's 39 tasks at hand. If I speak about each one for a minute, we're almost out of time, so I'll try to go quick. Stop me, please, because I'm just going to go. So starting with communication and trust, we numbered these, so they're easy to reference if we start to get lost. CT, communication and trust, item 1. Again, the idea is to hold more specific commission workshops about these strategic topics. Not just meetings, for sideline discussions. The meetings need to be focused on these items at hand. So again, there is a planned tentative workshop for November to start talking about these again in preparation for December, as Khalid already mentioned. There's no financial impact. This is a staff time item. The newly created city website, we consider this complete in this ongoing living, breathing thing. I've heard a lot of great feedback. I hope you're enjoying it as well. Always room to improve with the technology at hand. I know Kelly tonight's showcasing one of our new tools that will be on the website, and it's how this meeting is formatted. Item 3, develop a community survey for benchmarking. This one's one of the bigger ones in the set as far as needing action. We would intend to hire a consultant to aid in this process of making sure this survey that is developed and spread community-wide really hits all the key points of content and information from residents that we're interested in. It's my understanding that we've done this in the past with UCF. So taking the next step beyond this is identifying who that consultant may be, and we have budgeted $10,000 for this effort. Item 4 under communication and trust, facilitate stronger engagement and participation in Westside neighborhood community involvement. This is actually already underway. The CM has met with the Westside Ministry Alliance, and they are planning another meeting on comprehensive community involvement. I know Police Chief Coffin is also involved in that effort. We're budgeting a $15,000 estimate for that effort to continue forward. Next item, item 5, facilitate constructive public involvement regarding development west of I-95, balancing community issues. This too, we're considering it another public meeting west of I-95 to really hone in these concerns of I-95 and where to really focus the need. Again, we're budgeting $10,000 for this effort for marketing, public information, and then whatever output comes of those public meetings, so we can truly see them to fruition. Item 6, provide options for virtual town halls via social media and live streaming. We're getting better with that as we're doing it at the moment. Staff is going to continue to evaluate the options. We need, technology really is at hand here, as well as legal issues. So the staff's going to prepare an online survey immediately to collect data and preferences from folks that already are kind of in that virtual world. Would they participate? What things would they look for that we're not currently offering? And again, we consider that staff time for the moment until a technology item is identified. Item 7, under communication and trust, an interactive city map. Again, this would be another component to our city website, if you will, one that people can dive into. There's private and public project developments. I know the development services already has a tool that's out and updated on the monthly frequency, but we continue to improve that and, improve interactivity, I guess, instead of relying on just Adobe Reader and Excel. Maybe there's another platform out there that we're not aware of. So we'll continue to look at that, and I believe they're ready to be showcasing that this month. Item 8, measure and document social media participation. Again, that's an internal item with our public information officer. He's going to be publishing a report monthly, which would likely end up in the CM report on all the various social platforms that we have, how many folks are interacting with the various posts that we put out, and of what content is of most interest. Very similar, this one is measure and document community participation, so more the physical side and attending, showing up, not so much virtually. We are going to track it with the social media reporting, but we do also need to carry that with the survey benchmarking, because it is kind of a duplication of action here. Community participation with the survey, I really think, will show who's engaging in the city. And after we do the benchmark survey, after a certain amount of time, we'll really see if there's been a change in measuring ourselves. And item 10 under communication and trust, promote diversity, participation, all demographics at public events. This too, we wanted to track with an item above, facilitate stronger engagement, participation in West Side neighborhood community. So it feels like, again, I think we've already maybe heard that there's a little bit of redundancy here, but for this one we are going to, if there is a branching thought to this one, we would definitely capture it here, so we don't want to strike it from the action list. But right now our focus is on CT item 4, that stronger engagement with the West Side neighborhood community. And finally, under communication and trust, a very simple one, maintain and build the email database. This is just like the website, it's a living, breathing thing. We've always had it, we need to get better at it. It is being formatted and updated and promoted. I think promoted is the key word here. We need folks to know it exists and to go ahead and get us your email addresses, and you'll get blasted emails on whatever topics are of interest. Any comments on communication and trust? Overall financial impact, to everything I just read to you, would be $35,000.
I can't hear you. What was the money?
With to total all the financial impacts I read off would be $35,000 under communication and trust. So if there's no comments, I can move to the next one.
Michelle?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is your purview. I recently had a nice discussion with one of our merchants. They were concerned about the COVID pandemic that we're having, and she was hoping on a let's just say, better or more immediate and intense communication between what the city can provide, what the county can provide, what the federal government might provide. I know we, with Phil's help, we've been putting it out on social media. If that falls under your purview, could you please pass on the message that maybe we could ramp that up so that some of our employees that work for some of the vendors and commerce in the city can gain access to some of those assets like financial help, possibly screenings if they want them, just more intense than what we've been doing. That would be very helpful, I think, to the community. That would go along with trust and communication.
Right.
Not that we're doing a bad job, but I think they would like more.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle, I can speak to that. I think that's that's certainly under communication and trust. I think it's a very specific, we're always gonna have some episodic event that we're gonna be communicating about and building trust about. Sorry. So I think from a strategic level, I think these are there, and then hopefully things like, for instance, the email database, that'd be, if we've done that well in the years leading up to the next type of event like this, that's a way that we can get that information out. If we've done better at the virtual town halls and other things like that, again, that's another avenue for us to get that kind of information out. So I think we have to separate the item we face today, and then this strategic level of how we move forward as a city. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Any other comments for communication and trust before we move on? Okay. We will now move into the quality of life measures.
All right, hang on, we're just gonna pause for 1 second because we're
Discussing
trying to figure it out.
audio.
It's really echoey up here for me. I don't know, do y'all have trouble
A
hearing?
little bit difficulty.
Yep.
All right, do some
Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, it is still,
A
yeah.
little better.
Go a little lower if you
Yeah.
can. These, I think those are just a little hot. Okay,
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
feels better.
Start singing
We'll
for
play with
you.
more between the next meeting. All right, thank you. Sorry, Michelle.
No problem. I can hear it a little bit too up here. It's okay. Again, so into quality of life, a bit more of a challenging one. Communication and trust, I think it's things we're always trying to get better at is like a category, and it's more of a day-to-day thing for us to always just improve on. But this starts to get into the subjective realm, so bear with me. So the first one is clear metrics for essential city service performances, police, fire calls, traffic safety, utilities. That's something that already exists. As far as data goes, I know our police department and fire department do very well with putting out those reports. Currently, we just, our plan to promote that better would be to put out a quarterly newsletter in addition to what's already being published on the city website. Again, no financial impact there. It's just more staff time, again, having the data and just continuing to share it as through many avenues as possible for folks to find it. Item 2 here, this is the one I was just kind of mentioning. This is a tough one for me personally, is develop clear metrics for quality of life and character factors. So again, GAI being that they're planners, this was a fun one to listen to them discuss about how do we track this item, this metric, as far as how many historic buildings do we have? Do we track the tree canopy coverage? What's the park acreage? I know there's park master plan coming very soon, which maybe could help with some of this. How often are community facilities being utilized? And collecting all that data really could maybe paint a picture along with our benchmarking survey of where we are in the realm of quality of life. So for us as a staff, this one really needs some action. We need assistance and consensus on what attributes we really think are important to track to make this tool. We internally as staff have some ideas. I think we can come back and share those with you. But if you have some ideas tonight, I think that would get us down a path of what you consider measurable quality of life items. So we can come back to that unless you would like to hit it now. We can always come back. Item 3. Develop a strategic working group and partnership regarding homelessness issues, services, and peer city success models. There was a workshop held in June regarding the homeless issues. There will be further discussion in future workshops needing to be scheduled, and there is currently a revised ordinance underway. We do see this as a financial impact, holding those workshops, and whatever output could spin off of those. So we're holding a $75,000 estimate for this particular strategic item. Item 4, develop a long-range plan for the administrative office building site. There is a commission workshop that needs to be scheduled again to gain consensus on the future of this site. So we would roll that into November and December strategic session. Item 5, develop programs to support local businesses and or live where you work programs. Again, we have our new business coordinator and economic development directors on staff. We think between the two of them, we should be able to come up with a really great program to help achieve this item. we would be budgeting a $20,000 estimate for that as well for marketing and promoting, and any facilitation needs that they have. Item 6, develop a long-range plan for conservation lands. I know Brian and his team are, this is a living, breathing, 2-3 years in the making, Trimble Creek lands and the existing lands. We're currently in the acquisition phase. The next phase would be to determine the usage and the management of that acquired land. We see a financial impact of this. This is one of the larger ones, $200,000 for the management and implementation plan of those acquired lands. And last but not least, under this category, explore needs to bring additional community services to the western I-95 neighborhood. Again, we've already kind of mentioned this in communication and trust, specifically about facilitating that involvement, so we'd like to track that under that particular item. Any questions, comments, thoughts on quality of life measures, any kind of theories you may have on just the category overall or particular item we mentioned? We'd love to hear it now.
Did you have a total dollar amount on this one?
On quality of life measures, yes, $295,000. And the last one was the big one there, the 200. Any thoughts?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So on QM2, and that was the one that is the clear metrics, and I've spoken
Yep.
at length about that. Yeah, I know my feelings on it.
Yep.
My general thought is this: we can spend the next 15 years trying to get consensus on what the perfect metrics are, or we can find some other city that's done this, one of whom I've provided that report, and we start with those, or 80% of those, pick your top 10, I don't care, start with something, and then over time, that's just the nature of that kind of a process is, you start somewhere, you put a line in the sand, and then you look up in a few years and you say, we're really not paying attention to this metric, but we really should be looking at this. I wish we had that number, and so it kind of ebbs and flows, but I think we can spend a lot of bandwidth and time just trying to debate like what really matters, and until you start kind of tracking some of it, it's really hard to tell.
Right.
And so I would look to see, what has been done, what have others done, and what data can we easily get that doesn't cost any money to collect, and let's just start aggregating, compiling that data and presenting it in a dashboard type fashion. So that's just my thoughts on QM2. I don't want to see us get caught up in the paralysis by analysis trap of we spend more time looking at it and talking about it than actually just getting down and doing it. QM number 6, and this was the long-range plan for the conservation. We don't have to get in the weeds on this, so I'm just going to throw it out. As I saw that $200,000 number, that just seemed really high, and so I just would have to, that gave me pause, so I just want to understand that. Again, we don't have to get in the weeds today, but just would like to understand maybe the future session what's in that 200,000, because my thought is we bought the land, they're passive lands, we're not doing, that plan should be fairly simple to me. And then number 7, when you start talking about like true strategic planning, these are kind of that's kind of the visionary questions that we need to be asking, I think, and it's tough, but that's where you start kind of zooming out and look at the city from the 30,000-foot view and saying, okay, where do we have gaps? And I think we're getting there with some of the other things we have, like the Parks Master Plan. I think will start showing us some of these gaps. But we had at my university I used to work at up in Daytona, we had a master plan that wasn't the strategic plan of all the programs you wanted to build or the new things like that, but it was just a facilities master plan. And we looked at where are we potentially going to need more facilities, or what can we repurpose old facilities for, just looking at all of our kind of infrastructure and capital investments and having a master campus plan for that. So that's what that kind of feels like to me, and again, I think we're getting there. Obviously, this is way more complex than a 5-acre campus, but I think that's where that's going, and so hopefully the parks is a good start to that, and then we can look at what other things do we need to, maybe we need a satellite police station that's out near 95 or something like that. Those are, I don't know the answer to those questions, but just my thoughts.
Okay. Any other thoughts for this category? Hearing none. Okay, we will move on to growth management. 5 items here. Item number 1, consider a State Road 44 corridor plan to address commercial development and character along the corridor. So again, the action is well underway. It's always being looked at and reviewed and updated, but review and update the zoning and LDR along State Road 44 corridor with consideration of distinct standards by segment providing specific design guidelines. Again, so that's underway. Staff time, no financial impact that we see there. Item 2, this, you'll see this happen again in transportation, but again, the report was formatted in this way, so we tried to keep consistency. This item has a main action and subtasks that kind of roll up underneath it, but the action is update the land development and zoning code, particularly examining several issues, and those issues are 1 through 5 below. Residential and neighborhood design standards, specific to the new western development, required open space and community service elements, building form as opposed to density measures, commercial design, site planning and buffers, and parking requirements. So the overall action to capture all of those, again, is staff time, internal development services, implementing the LDR revisions, again, as listed above. Item number 3, develop a working group on attainable housing. The action is to discuss with the City Commission on establishing a community task force to develop a feasible plan of action. So again, that should be coming back to you as a separate item, or it can be discussed tonight, but the idea is to make a task force specifically about attainable housing. Item 4, proactively manage a western growth through the comprehensive planning, LDR amendments, and partnerships with landowners and cities and agencies. Again, kind of a reference to the item number 1 above, but this is more, I think, on the partnering level, looking out ahead of ourselves with the future land use and who owns those properties. But the action is to work with the Economic Development Board, P&Z, the Neighborhood Council, to establish a baseline concept for economic development in that area. We do see the need of a consultant being a part of this process, and we're budgeting $50,000 to $100,000 for that item. And then lastly, under growth management, we're going to continue to engage the UC through increased collaboration for strategic and planning initiatives. Again, we need to continue to involve them. We need to involve them earlier in the stages. Perhaps they're here in December with us at our usual session. I think we say that quite frequently. We just need to make sure they're at this session in December. Any other comments? Or that's growth management. If you have any comments, I'm happy to hear them.
So what I would like to see is somewhere in this process is that we actually get some user groups together and get feedback. We grade ourselves, we know the complaints, but we don't always get all the positives. So at some point in time through this process on any number one of these, we should probably pull a small group of users in and say, okay, give us some feedback. What are you experiencing? Or what can we do better,
On the overall process that we're doing here?
All of it. I mean, from the communication part all the way down.
Right.
We think that we are doing well with the website, but maybe randomly pull some people, from different neighborhoods and say, are you getting the message? Is it coming to you? With growth management, get a hold of some of the builders. Is there something going right, something going wrong, and just get the community's feedback on all of these at some point in time as to whether we truly are meeting our goals and meeting their goals and their needs.
Almost like a community survey for benchmarking. Almost like a community survey for benchmarking. Like CT number 3. No, I mean, I genuinely think that's exactly, I agree with you. And that's, to me, what CT number 3 was, is
right.
Doing that, and it doesn't have to be some 27,000 people engagement. It can be some small targeted random sampling type things, but just something to make sure that if we only hear from the people that take the time to show up when an issue near and dear to their heart is on the agenda, or those that are actively engaged enough to proactively email, that's just a small sliver. You're not hearing a lot of other views.
Right.
So I agree.
Just doing a time check on myself.
Go ahead. We got one more comment, Michelle.
Another quick comment about growth management, and sometimes it's an oxymoron. when we say growth management. We are growing quickly. These epic rains we just witnessed exemplified how we store and manage storm water. We have a beautiful asset to our left here, and I'm concerned as we continue to grow and elevate new properties, where will all that water grow? I think in discussions with planning staff, building, the developers, if there are things that we can do better instead of having brown water go into the river.
So that's a good setup for the next category. We have some stormwater management plan updates in that category.
They've got it under environmental resiliency versus growth management, I think, but I think we're going to
You
see
do.
it in ER4 coming up.
Okay.
Okay, you good? Okay, we'll move into environmental resiliency. Thank you. First item up, again, very similar to last one you saw, main task here, evaluate resiliency strategies for coastal flood areas. Again, and underneath that, there's three very specific tasks we see there. Examining the current base flood elevation projection data and consider what appropriate standards should be for new construction elevations. Mr. Sachs, I think that's probably the one you might be
Thank
looking
you.
for.
I got it.
Item 2, identify opportunities for stormwater storage as well as stormwater flow so that potentially flood-prone areas have less risk of long-term inundation. And item 3, focus work efforts on inboard areas with highest probability for flooding and prolonged inundation. So we see that, again, as part of the overall land development, the LDR update and the revisions. That's where all of this should be captured. And it's in progress, and you should see it within the next year. Item 2, under environmental resiliency, explore opportunities for enhanced stormwater treatment and best management practices. It's in progress. You know, we need to benchmark the city's stormwater standard against other municipal industry leaders in the stormwater management and come behind ourselves and update our own standard. So that's the intent and the action at hand, is to do a good check around sister cities that are handling this issue. Item 3, develop VMP program for low-impact development, rain gardens, native plants, and other techniques to address the water quality and stormwater impact issues. We will, again, evaluate those VMP programs and consider other options that may be available to enhance our water quality. You know, there's 2 projects currently underway with the regional assurance plan. There is action out there today. Item 4, update the stormwater master plan to explore opportunities for regional stormwater management facilities. Again, the action here would be to update that stormwater master plan and or the regional stormwater master plan. We should consider budgeting this as a large ticket item for the next fiscal year. We see a consultant, again, needing to be involved, so we set a budget of $200,000 for that overall update to occur. And lastly, promoting a culture of environmental sustainability in New Smyrna Beach. So I kind of took this one personally and trying to push this on the staff side and engaging with the Marine Discovery Center here to help us prepare this plan on promoting this. You know, they are our local advocates. They already live and breathe this. They're a nonprofit organization, so we've already had contact with them. We're going to come back to you with a bit more tailored idea of how to promote that environmental sustainability in New Smyrna Beach. Any comments for environmental sustainability and resiliency before we close with transportation?
With the specific, the last one, ER5, I've been talking about this one a lot with folks, and we're doing a lot of big things that take a lot of time, and they're almost so big it's hard for any individual citizen to kind of get engaged in and wrap their head around and figure out how they can make an impact. So I'm looking for in the next year or 2, and this isn't necessarily strategic, but it kind of falls into this, some real hands-on opportunities. Like, how can I get my children involved in a program? And I know there's some out there, but how can we as a city get more proactive? If somebody says, I want to make a difference, what is the city doing and how can I help? Where can we point them to some very specific programs that they can go and make a difference in their 1-mile stretch of river? And if we did that across enough 1-mile stretches, we may see some real living, breathing changes to this. And again, we we have to do all the other stuff. We have to do the regional approach, and I get all that. But how can we do it in a very hands-on way as well? So hopefully that can, I think that's kind of where you're going with that, and I like it.
Right, great. Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Okay, we'll move on to transportation and circulation. Item 1 was to enhance roadway character and livability. Again, this has a subtopic to it, and the thought there was to, the first subtopic is to promote pedestrian and bicycle and character enhancements to state and county roads. So this is our, our trails program that is well underway. We've been at it for quite a while, and we're going to continue to partner with the TPO, the county, and DOT to ensure that connectivity is happening and being supported from the city. The second item underneath that action as far as enhancing roadway character and livability would be to identify opportunities for new local street sidewalks and bicycle enhancements. Again, so the first one is more trails and that type of travel, but this is more pedestrian on the level of walkability and sidewalks. So we have been trying very hard to update our sidewalk master plan. It's quite the task, just so you know, but we'll be bringing that forward to you all soon. We completed the 2012 model when the report was done. All those sidewalks have been built, and now it's time to find some new amazing candidates for sidewalks. And the third item under enhancing roadway character and livability would be to pursue opportunities for local streets and network connections. So this is the roadway side of the house. Where can we find connections, again, to alleviate congestion and or help folks get around. Again, the action here, identify any required connections where needed and appropriate. So again, staff time, internal. Item 4 under that category would be to explore opportunities for traffic calming techniques citywide where requested. And the action there would be to come to the city commission and have a recommendation to adopt the traffic calming manual. The financial impact there would be $50,000 with a consultant. And last but not least, under roadway character and livability, the item is to accept the measure of congestion and slow speed in exchange for safety, beauty, and walkability. That's more of a comment that came out of the report through GAI. So we acknowledge that, and we think the items that we've already talked with you through on 1 through 4 capture that idea. Item 2 under transportation circulation, develop comprehensive solutions to parking. We love to talk about parking. So the subtask would be to examine opportunities for the Park Once districts that allow for efficient parking and access to multiple locations. So that would, the action there identified would be to update the transportation element in the comprehensive plan update, internal with the development services team. Item 2 under solutions to parking, we'd like to create designated loading zones for the historic retail main streets. We are very familiar with the pilot program that was implemented on Flagler, and we would like to evaluate the success of that here in the next couple months and report back. And if it's going well, we'll consider it in other locations. And lastly, under comprehensive solutions to parking, explore partnerships for shared use parking facilities. So the action there is to continue to work with the merchant associations to best utilize available parking amongst the businesses themselves. Last item here would be item number TC3, develop projects for multimodal mobility. We'll say that one. This is the ride share idea. Develop a program to implement ride share, either bike share or scooter share. Right now we don't have that in our city, but we would like to continue to monitor industry best practices, what other big cities, little cities, coastal cities may be doing with their bike share and ride share programs. And then last but not least, continue to develop the local shuttle to service the loop. Again, we had come forward to you all about a pilot program to have a trolley/shuttle kind of service that area, and we were going to find an event that maybe we could test that on, but unfortunately this pandemic fell out of the sky, and now we're kind of on hold until it feels safe to re-implement and approach that idea. That is all 39 tasks at hand. I'm happy to take any other comments you may have, closing comments, ideas. Oh, I'm sorry, and then just graphically on the screen, as far as the software goes, online that we showed you the last time, we put in each item has a start and an end date, so it really builds a schedule. If you ever want to look at it, we have that. It's a good snapshot to see how we're doing against what we said we set out to do. And you can't see it up there, but it exists.
All right, any last comments on, let's just go with that last item, transportation and circulation, and then we'll zoom out to any general comments. So anything on that last batch? Just a couple things on that one. I would say of all of them, that is the one that there is universal agreement on some of the issues. There's universal disagreement on hospital solutions, is what I've heard and seen in the community. So of all of them, that'll be the one that'll be probably kind of toughest to work through. There were a few items that you put up with just a couple words that caught my attention. On 1.5, this notion of accept a measure of congestion, I think that may be off-putting to some in the public. I think I know what you mean, actually. I don't think you mean accepting that traffic is going to back up to 95. I think you mean accepting on local streets and slower. I don't think that's, so I think we got to be careful with that wording and possibly tweak that wording a little bit.
Sure.
Just to make sure people don't put out that it's our strategic plan to have congestion. On 1.4, the 50,000 for the traffic calming manual, my recollection, I may be wrong, but we've already invested that, right? Or no? I think we have a draft now that we've just kind of
It's,
kicked around.
the manual is done. I think it just what has to go along with it,
Okay,
not the actual manual itself.
I got it, okay. Got it. And then, and then on 3.1 and 2, again, I think there's, the rideshare programs, I was a proponent for those, I remain a proponent for those. There is some interesting stuff coming back from other cities, so I think we can, being a late mover in that is probably going to be better because we're going to be able to take some best practices and figure out what has worked in cities similar to ours, because certainly there are cities that are having issues with this. So I think being a late mover on that, but I definitely would like to see us try something. And then 3.2, I think the private market may beat us to that, but we'll see. Those are my comments on that, and then we'll open it up for any comments in general on the strategic plan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I will touch on an issue that the mayor just brought up, the slow speeds. I think I agree with the mayor, the congestion backed up on 95 is a different issue. But I think it is important to make sure we are articulating, communicate to the people when we're going to have bicycles on the roads, when we're going to slow the speed down for golf carts, we're going to have golf carts on the road. Golf carts are going to be using routes they're not supposed to because they've got a couple hundred yards that they can sneak over. I think it is important to make sure that we are communicating with the people that if they want this is a potential, this is a negative aspect of that. So I agree with the mayor. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the policies that people want and then the negative aspect and not presenting that to the people. I've got a lot of personal opinion on all of this, so I'm holding back on that. What I did notice was we were talking about the monetary dollar, but we're not putting any kind of measurable on the staff time. It's just a vague statement, as if it is endless and a resource that is there. So I'd like a little more emphasis put on what staff time means, who's going to do it, and there's a big assumption that we may have staff just waiting around to be tasked with something. So I think
I should have clarified that. I'm sorry. We have just an abbreviation kind of under each one of who that particular staff is by rule, so it's not.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Sorry.
You're looking that way and then
Sorry, so under each item, we did try to identify what staff person in the city or team was in charge of that item. So we tailored it to that level, just to answer your question.
Okay,
So
great.
specifically on sidewalks, it's engineering staff and myself working together to do the sidewalk update.
Okay, looking at this document as a whole, do we have an idea of how much staff time it would take, like we do the dollar amount, and what is actually practical. Because it all sounds great, we all want to dive into it. But as we know, we have a staff and time issue right now. How do we move forward with issues we haven't even tackled? And it's a
Right.
fairly large document that is very broad.
A workload issue, I hear you.
I'm sorry?
It's a workload issue, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other comments? Vice Mayor?
I kind of like the way the whole thing is laid out. It's an extension of our resiliency. I'm not going to characterize it any particular way, but what we went through over the last couple of years, I think this is a natural extension of it. I like the way it's broken down into 5 different categories. I do not see a single thing that I would take off the list. The only comment I have on all the various items and how it's put together is I think under quality of life measures, we should have an additional task in there as to how we involve the police and fire departments in working with the community. They do, but I think that we have to pay a little more attention to that, and I know both agencies would be more than happy to do that. So that should be part of our strategic goals. Mr. Mayor, do you want comments on any particular item or just for me to ramble on here?
Broad, I mean, I'm not asking to ramble on, but broad comments
All
are
on,
fine.
all on point.
All right, broad comments are fine.
Okay. To start with, strategic plan at this level is very broad. We've broken down a number of categories in it, but truly we're down to 5 distinct functions. There is no way that by listing these financial impacts, it adds anything whatsoever to the plan. Yes, we have cost for consultants. Here is about $660,000. We have staff time, which will far exceed the $660,000. And neither of those 2 items really add anything to the plan. You know, we want to have a plan as to what we're going to do. Yes, we have a budget, and we work those items into the budget as we always have in the past. You take a look here, manual uniform traffic control devices. That's a number that'll probably never be spent because we spent it already. We have another item in here, if I can find it, for $200,000 about the Turnbull Creek properties. We're going to spend over $10 million out there. We don't have to list $200,000 to develop consultants or to work with it. I just don't see the financial impacts being broken down by category as really being relevant at all. I've done a number of strategic plans. You address the financial impacts maybe 2 or 3 iterations down the road, but here's a guideline as to what to go ahead and do. Some of these items we budgeted, some of them we haven't. And yes, we will have to pay down the road, but that's not what's going to drive the final product, the final picture of what our city is supposed to look like. What's our overall budget per year? Really, does $660,000 over what may be accomplished over 5 or 7 years matter? It simply doesn't. I would like to see all references to the financial impact taken out of this. I just don't see it as relative. I also, on the general, it's not a 2020 strategic plan. We're kind of done with that. We don't need a year on it. It's a document, as you very clearly said, is a working document that we're going to be changing and we're going to be working on. So call it the strategic plan, call it whatever, but it's not associated with any particular year whatsoever. I think what we have here is the culmination of almost 2 or 3 years worth of working this plan up starting with the resiliency. I would like to see it move forward. I don't want to see any real major changes, except take all the references to financial impacts out, because in my opinion, they're just not relevant.
Okay.
If we want to go into any specific items, I have spent a lot of time. I got a large copy. I got it circled up. I got arrows. There's some redundancies. There's only one thing that I mentioned that might be missing. But I could go ahead and prove this whole thing financial right now in the
Okay.
name.
Good, because we're gonna get to that here in about 5 minutes.
Maybe,
Maybe, we'll see what the rest of the commission thinks, but that's the whole goal of the meeting. So
yes.
Commissioner Sacks, comments, questions?
Just a quick one. I think sometimes government, it's the job of government to do studies and spend millions of dollars on those studies. Just for instance, the Turnbull properties, there were commitments that we have to keep that were provided by the trust, a few things that we had to do. I think if we just look to what they're asking for us to do, like provide a trail, if we could save a whole lot of money just by doing those basics. That's one example where we could hopefully save money and use those monies for actual hardware in our city. If we could get away from that a little bit, maybe we could save $500,000 or so. I don't know, but I think we have the talent here in our city to go ahead with a lot of stuff without a lot of consultants. Thanks.
Any other comments? Mr. Hartman, any other comments?
Mayor, if I may, just to clarify on the Turnbull Creek, the $200,000 that you see as a financial impact in the strategic plan, that is the management plan that was submitted with the grant. So there's items there to be constructed. So that was an estimate. The reason that we put the financial impact is just for the commission, just to see, I mean, we don't have the actual number for it, but just to give you an idea, what would it take to get that item and have an action for it? So that was the whole idea of having a financial impact. The exact figure at this point we don't have. And that's why I suggested for us in December 10th to go through this and then have the priority list from the commission. Because obviously, and I think we discussed this takes a lot of time from staff or consultants. And at this point, it's a growing document. And so we got deep into it to figure out what it needs. It's quite a bit.
So a couple of things. Number one is, I think, forget for a minute the items that are here. How this is being done today and will be done in the future is a vast improvement over the past. We're now using software and technology. There will be more visibility and line of sight and accessibility from the general public and the commission to be able to track some of these things, see these things. We went into depth at that at a previous meeting. I hope we'll be able to do some more on that so the public can be aware. So how we're doing this process now, so much better than even just 2 years ago when it was an Excel spreadsheet we were trying to manage all this stuff on. Now we've got the semblances of a Gantt chart and some other stuff, and this is progress. So the other thing is, you took the words out of my mouth. The one thing I had written down is the biggest cost is staff time. That's the common theme on every single one of those. And so I think that's what staff is asking us in December to spend time on, instead of what would have been kind of this blue sky visioning session where we come in and say, what are all the things we want to work on? And by the end of it, we've generated the exact same list that's been generated the past 3 years in a row. This time instead, let's come in and try to help prioritize these things and say, okay, we want to make some progress on all of these, but in 2020, we're really going to put, 2021, we're really going to push these items. We're going to put these at the absolute top of the list. And I think to do this, I'm going to disagree with the Vice Mayor, I think to do that, I want to have a good sense of the financial costs. I know it's not going to be down to the penny, but I want to have a decent sense of that cost, because if it's $200,000 versus $5, that influences how I might prioritize it. So whether we need it in this document presented this way or not, we can figure that out, but I like kind of having that line of sight because it helps the prioritization. And there are a couple of items here, though, I see that, you know, I think we need to make a decision. You know, some of the stuff is, you know, staff has brought to us a few times now, and we haven't given them back anything other than just keep churning it. You know, there's a couple on here that I think fall into that category. So I think there's also a few that, you know, staff can jump on, and it's not a huge amount of time. And it's probably things we're already doing, but it's, you know, easy things to just start kind of running with. So I think we both kind of fall into that category. So the goal tonight is the whole purpose of the meeting is to review this. And again, this is the, you know, the end of the process, not the beginning. Although it's really, at this point, a living document. I agree it really shouldn't have a date to it. Most strategic plans don't. And then you revisit it every once in a while to make sure it kind of stays current. So the goal tonight is to approve the strategic plan as, you know, with the comments that have been made. I want to just be clear, though, for everyone's benefit. That doesn't mean that just because the commissioner may vote in favor of this plan, it doesn't mean there's a ton of items on here. And so I'm sure we all probably are not the greatest fan of some item on here. And once we start digging into the details and debating each of those, and those come before us as a final item, you may hear disagreement or even a vote against it. But tonight we're saying, yeah, broad strokes, we all agree these are the things we should be working on. At least the majority of the commission agrees these are the things we should work on. But I want to make it clear, that doesn't mean every commissioner says, you know, yep, no, I completely agree with this and I want to see that, you know, just because they vote in favor of this broad plan. So when we vote on some stuff like this, it gets tough because the public will say, oh, you supported that. And so, well, I supported us talking about it and bringing it back to the commission with some details. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the strategic plan?
So moved. Second.
All right, City Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Commissioner Sacks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Colodey?
No.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor On?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, strategic plan has been approved, and now I look forward to the fun part. But seriously, great work from staff, and I look forward to, if you've given us the link already, or whenever, I don't know if you have, if you didn't have, I lost it, but if we can, you know, have that public view access, I'm anxious to see that and start sharing it, so. All right. Any other business for this meeting? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting, and we will see you all at 6:30.